Hey guys, it's Sue here and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, as you guys have probably guessed from the title and the thumbnail, I will be reviewing the 5 most raved about talked about foundations right now, and I'm super excited to review them because I actually ended up liking every single one of them. Now they're all different, they all have different great qualities about them. So without further ado, let's get this video started. Before we begin, I would like to tell you guys my skin tone, my natural skin tone has a yellowish undertone, and I'm in the shade between 21 and 23, and also I have oily combination skin, so on my T-zone I do get oily, and on my cheek areas I do tend to get dry. And to add on to that, it is really cold in Korea, and so my review on these foundations will be based on my experiences with them during the winter, but I just wanted to let you guys know so that you can kind of keep that in mind. The first foundation I'm going to review is this Espoir Pro Tailor Foundation Be Glow. Now I did use this in my last video where I did a tutorial on the Valentine's Day look, and I must say this foundation does absolutely give you an amazing glowy finish. Now I have combination oily skin, but I'm still able to get away with this, probably because it's winter and it's cold, but I have noticed that it does give me a very radiant glowing finish. It also seems to give you a really good coverage considering that it's light, it's not thick at all, it's not cakey, and the longevity for me is like mediocre. It's like a good 5 hours, I'd say max. Of course, I definitely have to use like a base product when I'm using this. Now the only downside for this foundation is that when I layer it on with a brush, when I spread it out with a brush, it doesn't really seem to settle well. Now it's kind of different to how a foundation like dries out. It's not like that. It's just for me that when I do apply this foundation on, at the end I do need to push it in with a sponge just to make sure it does adhere. And I think it's because the formula of this foundation, you'll probably notice it too when you put it on the back of your hand, is that even though when you spread it out it's really light, but once you just pump it at the back of your hand, it does have a little bit of volume to it. I don't know if I'm making any sense. Check it out for yourself and you'll see what I mean. That is the only downside, that I just need to use a sponge to make sure that it's really onto my skin. I do think that this is a great foundation, especially if you have like drier or normal skin. I think you will absolutely love the heck out of this foundation. The next foundation I'm going to be talking about is this Missha Radiance foundation, and this is their renewed version of their old Radiance foundation, and which I loved. I love the older version, and I also love the newer version. Now considering all the factors, price, quality, longevity, all that, I say this is my number one. This not only settled so well onto the skin, it's super light, but it gives you a decent amount of coverage. It stays on for a long time. The longevity is really good. It doesn't dry up next to my nose. So for me, this was the best one out of like all of them, considering all those factors. And whether I use a sponge or brush, it just seems to go on super well. So great job on this Missha. I say this is probably good for like all skin types. Really, it does give you a slight kind of like a moisturized finish, but it's not dewy. It's not like the Be Glow foundation where the radiance is obvious. This is like a normal finish for me, so I highly recommend this one. The next foundation is this Innisfree My Foundation, and mine is in 2.4. Now I already did like a first impressions video of it, and it hasn't really changed since then. This foundation has the thickest formula out of all the 5 I'm reviewing today. Obviously because it is high coverage, you can pick out the formula and the coverage. That is the whole concept of my foundation, and of course because I love full coverage, I picked 4 and then 2 as semi-matte. So it has a lot of coverage. So with that being said, it does seem to sit on a bit heavy on my skin, but it gives great coverage. So I do like this foundation. I especially love the scent. Please let me know if any of you guys also love this scent, because I seem to be like the only one talking about this, and I want to prove to you guys that I'm not crazy. It really does smell really nice. Now, because the formula is a bit on the heavier side, I do find that even though it has decent longevity, it does end up getting a bit messy on my skin, whether it be, you know, getting a little messy around the chin area or around the nose. One way or another, it just seems to get a little messy. I've never had experience where this stayed perfect throughout the whole day. That's kind of the only downside. So definitely with this one, when I'm using this one, I definitely have to be careful of how much amount or how much product that I put onto my skin. I have to be super careful not to, you know, cake it on, or else it's going to be a disaster. Of course, there are other versions like 1.4 or like 3.2, so there are different versions of this foundation, so please be aware that my version is 2.4. The next foundation is this Apieu Personal Tone Foundation, and Apieu just came out with this whole concept where they have so many variety of shades. Now, considering the very affordable price of this foundation is 12,200원, so that's 12,000 won. I'd say the quality of this foundation is really, really good. This kind of reminded me of the Radiance foundation from Missha, except that this is runnier. This is more runnier, more water-like, and it does have more of a matte finish. When you apply it on, it goes out, it settles really nicely onto the skin, really just the skin just seems to soak it all up. It does seem to give a pretty decent coverage considering how light and runny this is. So I really was impressed. I do recommend it for like combination skin. I think it might be a little tad too drying for those with dry skin, but of course you can, put a moisturizing base and you're good to go. Now, the only downside with this foundation was that the longevity was a little lacking. I found that throughout the day this would, disappear on my nose. It will melt down on my nose. It will kind of look a little messier on the chin. Nothing disastrous, but I did find that the longevity wasn't as good. I'd say max 5 hours, but nonetheless, considering how cheap it is, I still think this is a great foundation. Last but not least is this Nars Radiance Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. And guys, this is such a ridiculously good foundation. I'm dumbfounded, seriously. Now, the only downside of this foundation for me was its price. This is 72,000원, so 72,000 won in Korea, and that's expensive. That's too expensive. But aside from the price, let's just talk about the formula. The formula is super thin. This was the thinnest formula out of all the foundations here, but it just settled so nicely onto the skin, and it's so breathable that you don't feel like you're wearing foundation, and yet it does give you that look that you've got your makeup on, you've got your thing going on. It gives really good coverage considering it's really light, which is a pattern that seems to be occurring here. I think kind of like the new trend is fresh, natural look, but with coverage, which is great, which I'm all for. But anyways, going back to the formula, it is super light. It is such a long wearing foundation. The longevity is complimenti. It does not disappear, it does not get messy, and considering I have combination to oily skin, that's saying a lot. So I've seen people with dry skin love this. For me, I have oily skin, this seems to work really well. So guys, this is like a winner here, aside from the price. Now, obviously, this doesn't give me full coverage. I still need to go in with a concealer to cover up some spots. But anyways, aside from that, amazing. 100 points for Nars. So that was it for the review on the 5 foundations that I tried out, and I hope you guys found it helpful. I had an amazing time reviewing these foundations just because I thought they were all great products. So they're all definitely tailored to different needs. So definitely make your pick because they're all amazing. That was it for this video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next. Bye!